everyone. As usual, I like to provide an overview of today's assignment. For today's assignment, you are going to be creating another poem. This time, your poem is going to have a format to it. And in order for this poem to work, you must follow the format carefully. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to run through each line with you so that you will have the best success with this poem. Today's poem is called a Diamante poem. Diamante is another word for diamond, and you'll know in just a few minutes why it's called a diamond poem. So, the purpose of this poem is to show characterization differences. And for your poem today, you're going to be using the two main characters from the selection Thank You, Ma'am by Langston Hughes, which is Miss Luella Bates Washington Jones and Roger. So, let's take a moment and go line by line. Line 1 asks you for the noun. And in line 1, there's only one answer, which is the name of that actual person. And for you have a choice of whether you want to use Mrs. Jones first or you would like to use Roger. It wouldn't matter. All right, line 2 asks for two descriptive words or adjectives. So going back to our previous activities, you're going to think of what character traits describe Mrs. Jones, and you'll be placing those in each box, and you only need two of them, one in each box. Line 3 asks you for action words or verbs. These are words that will have to end in ing or it can end in ed. Line 4 is when the poem starts shifting. It says write four nouns. The first two are nouns that relate back to the person in line 1. The last two relate to line 7. So remember, a noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. So two of your first two words have to relate back to, like in my example, Mrs. Jones. The last two are going to relate to Roger. Now, for line 5 and 6, you're going to do the same thing that you did for lines 2 and 3. This time, for line 5, as far as my example, I will be starting to describe Roger. So in line 5, there are 3 action verbs that I would use to describe Roger, which are actions that took place relating to Roger. Line 6, you'll be doing 3 character traits or descriptive words. And then in line 7, you will write the final answer, which is Roger. And that's how you will do your rough draft for your poem. Now, the next part is where you're going to finalize it. And I've given you some steps to how to finalize your poem and provided a physical example of how it will look. Now, once you have done your rough draft, you're going to take the information that you have composed in the rough draft to a separate Google Doc that I'll be providing for you. Make sure that you give it a title. You can just simply call that title Thank You, Ma'am by Langston Hughes. You can call it Mrs. Jones versus Roger or Roger versus Mrs. Jones. The choice is yours as long as it does have a title. Make sure that title is at least 20-point font. And right here is where you would be able to adjust your font size. You can also adjust the font style as long as it's a style that is readable. Make sure you're not choosing a font style that can't be read. Make sure also that that font style is at least 14 to 18 font, and that is where you could choose up here. Once you've typed your information, make sure that you center it. And the centering and alignment is this button right here, where you could just click on that button. And, initially it always starts with left align and you have center. You want it to be centered. You can also add clip art if you choose. And remember, the clip art needs to be relating back to the story. It is not just random clip art. Most importantly, make sure that you are checking for spelling and grammar. Punctuation is important only for the commas. If you notice in the example, there are commas because things are listed, but you do not have to worry about periods. And you also, it's not really necessary unless it is a proper name, such as Mrs. Jones or Roger, that you would have to capitalize, unless you're naming a particular place or your particular place, such as where did this story take place as far as a state, if it was mentioned. So please make sure that you do read the directions carefully before you begin submitting the poem. And if you do have any questions, remember the best place to ask the question is to use the add a comment feature by just simply clicking on the add a comment feature, or you can send it through an email. So please have fun with this activity and let me know if there's anything else that I needed to add to the assignment or if you have any other questions. Take care.